Hope you are having a fantastic week. Here's another quick tip sponsored by FreshBooks. Now, you've probably thought of this 1,000 times and probably not very often done it because it's sort of like a bad word. In general, whether you're in your personal life or your business, you want to know what it is? It's the word budget. Nobody likes the word budget ever, but do you have a business budget? I highly recommend, please do it now. Okay, so one of the things, I'll give you a couple quick tips on actually doing it. It can be super simple. You can, of course, do it in FreshBooks also or on a spreadsheet. What I want you to do is I want you to figure out what your normal expenses are each month. That means fixed costs, right? So what are those things that are reoccurring every single month? And then also your variable costs, which include maybe one-time spending, like I just bought a new computer or we just spent a whole bunch in testing a specific marketing. So that's not normal. It's not going to happen all the time. And write it down. And of course, how much you're making also. But what we want to do is we want to figure out and make sure that your budget is predicting the next few months. So you're not living hand to mouth all the time where you only know, okay, well, this much is coming in this month. We want to know and predict how much money you need to make just to cover expenses every single month and what it looks like when you actually grow a little bit more. So are expenses going up or are they not? So that way you know and can predict the right business moves to make. So if you haven't done that already, make sure you have a business budget. Do it this week. It's extremely important. And of course, if you want to check out FreshBooks free trial with no credit card to get that situated and ready to go for you, go to freshbooks.com/EM and put in Eventual Millionaire in the Where'd You Hear About Us section. But either way, do it today or tomorrow. Put it in your calendar. It's extremely important for you to make the best business decisions humanly possible in your business. Have an amazing day and enjoy the interview. Welcome to Eventual Millionaire. I'm Jamie Masters, and I am so excited to have my friend and mentor, Nick Webb, back on the show again. He's got an amazing new book that's coming out. You can actually see it in the video in the background. It's awesome. It's called What Customers Crave, and we're going to dive into that today. Thanks so much for coming on the show, Nick.
Hey, my pleasure, as usual.
I know everybody needs to check out how amazing his background is, by the way. So if you're not watching the video, go check it out after because it's so well placed, product placement at its best. But that's sort of the whole point, right? We're talking about customer experience. You really want to make sure that we're getting what the customers are actually wanting. So tell me in a nutshell what the book is about.
Well, I spent most of my life inventing bright, shiny objects, right? And it was cool to develop these contraptions that ultimately delivered value to consumers. But I think today in a connected economy, one of the most interesting things that anybody can do is learn how to be customer experience designers. Because, when you think about it in its most simple terms, if we want to make a lot of money, we have to deliver a lot of value. And in order to deliver a lot of value, we have to be really granular and judicious in the way in which we architect those experiences. So I guess the best thing, and this was a fun book to write because it first of all made me think that I was losing it, right? Because everything I thought I believed was like completely wrong. Like treat the customers nice, right? That kind of stuff. What you begin to realize is you start to look at some of the best companies and the most successful entrepreneurs. What they did is they identified a range of customers, not by market demography, not by socioeconomics and gender and all those other dopey things that we used to do in marketing. What they realized is that it really boiled down to is the range of customer personas. In other words, what customers hated and what customers loved. And then they identified these various personas. And then from there, they engineered these perfect experiences. And if you take a look at some of the most successful startups, it wasn't the bright, shiny object that made millions and millions of dollars. It was their ability to be sensitive about these range of customer personas and then to develop these perfect human experiences.
Okay, we totally have to dive way deeper into that because, of course, we're told product market validation, put them together and everybody's happy. Yay, right? Yeah. But you're saying it's way more than that. So how do we even figure out, well, let me ask you this first. How big of a company do you have to be before you really have to pay attention to this customer experience? Because, it sounds like it's going to take a lot and should be done towards the beginning, right?
Well, here's the beauty is, there is a sort of democratization of value. In other words, we can be a sole proprietor. We can literally be a micro business and still leverage these inexpensive. It's more about hacking, right? It's about being smart rather than throwing a bunch of money at it, because corporations have a lot of bureaucracy. They're fear-centric. They're at what I call the baseline level of customer expectation, meaning that they deliver what customers expect, so they think that's good enough. But entrepreneurs can identify ways to deliver exceptional experiences. So I can't think of a better tool for the entrepreneur than to really look first and foremost at how to leverage customer experience design.
Okay, now we're all like at the edge of our seat. So tell us, how do we find out what these personas are so we know exactly what to do with them?
Well, let me give you an example how one of the most profitable businesses in the world does it. Apple. They're not just the most profitable business in the world, they're also the most profitable retailer. So what they do, which I love, is that they politely probe you. They call it politely probing. When you walk into the store, they're not instructed to sell you. They are instructed to identify your persona or customer node type, right?
Great. Okay.
Right. Let's take me for an example. I'm super busy. I know their product. I'm not there to visit. I'm not lonely. Give me my stuff and let me get the hell out of here.
That's
right?
me too. That's awesome. Okay.
Yeah. We're transactionalists,
Yep.
right? So to us, a good experience means speed, efficiency, and allowing us to take our pathway. Apple is a brilliant company and they realize that. So they have pre-invented the perfect experience for me. Download our free app, get whatever you want on the shelf, and walk out the door. Now, my wife, she likes to go on Pinterest and she likes to visit, and she's the nicest person on the planet, but she, time is not of essence, right? And it's more about the relationship, which is what I love about her. But they're going to ask her a few questions. They're going to instantly realize that she's a nurturing node or persona type. And they're going to send her to the Genius Bar, and they're going to go on Pinterest, and they're going to upload family photos. And before you know it, she's leaving with 2 boxes of Apple stuff. So that level of granularity of understanding not what and it doesn't matter how old they are. It doesn't matter what their gender is. It doesn't matter any of those things. What matters is, what do they hate? And let's not do that to them. And what do they love? And let's sort of 10x that. And that's what the best companies are doing.
I so appreciate you saying that, because we've just been stuck in the demographics of like this age to this age. And you're like, dude, ask them what they actually care about, not necessarily, because there's a wide range of what that is. So how do we actually figure out what our personas are, though? If you're an entrepreneur and you're like, okay, great, how many should I be looking for? How many experiences do we need to create? Like, how do we figure out what this works?
Generally speaking, companies come up with 3 to 6 personas. Okay. And it's manageable, and it generally covers 90% of the personas. And the way we do that is through what I call contact point innovation. Now, one of the things, if you look at the science of customer experience design, you could easily go into a company and find thousands of different touch points. And that's interesting. And, it's fun to do that academically. But the problem is it doesn't scale and it's not manageable. So in the book, what I did is I broke it down into 5 touch points. The pre-touch moment. 97% of your customers that are going to help you drive your success and wealth, 97% of the time, they're looking at you through a pre-touch moment, through a micro-mobile moment, or through a digital research moment. And here's the first step. The first step you have to do is to understand what kind of people, what would people be looking for? And it could be that they're, and there you can use social analytics, you can use ethnography, you can use a range of digital tools to understand what those search terms look like. Probably a little complicated to get into now, but the point is we can begin to understand kind of what they're after, and from that, we can identify how we can deliver unique and special value. So, but in those physical touch points, those first touch moments, those core moments, the last touch moments, and the in touch moments, those we can actually go to those touch points and observe how people do it. In the book, I have a chapter about the neo-wash car wash. And so neo-wash, if you think about your local car wash, how do you Uberize the car wash? Well, the first thing you do is you have to look, what do people care about? And what we observed was that there were 4 different types of people that got their car washed. There was Speedy, and Speedy, like us, we're transactionalists. We want the end result. Give me a reasonably clean car and get me out of here, right? That's Speedy. Then there was Thrifty. I don't care about time and not even necessarily about Uber quality. I care about cheap. And then you have the quality-centric Sparkles. And Sparkles wants the perfect car wash. And then lastly, there was Touchy. And Touchy is the person that's retired. 69 years old, going to the car wash is an experience. It's getting up, getting in the car, and going somewhere. And we found out those were pretty much all of the different node types that went to a car wash. So for Speedy, we used time movement analysis and efficiencies and brought in a pit crew from NASCAR. And we identified ways to significantly reduce the time that it took to get through the car wash. And in fact, we allowed Speedy to pre-reserve time on the fast lane. So they can pull in and go to the fast lane, which is sort of stylized to look like an IndyCar pit stop, right? And by doing that, we did the one thing that needed to be done to serve Thrifty. Thrifty needed a cheap car wash. And since this is a labor-intensive business, by serving Speedy, we served Thrifty, right? And then we also aggregated low volume times by selling Thrifty times when people tend not to get their car washed, right? So by looking at, and then, and Touchy, I forgot what I called that node, but anyway, the clean node wanted a perfect car, sparkly.
Yes.
So, I don't know if you ever watched this at a car wash. Here in California, I think it's a felony to drive around with a dirty car, right? So, you have to wash your car or like you're a scumbag, right? So we have to go to the car, by law. But you go there and they're drying off your car. And then you go get your car, and then you're forced to be put into this awkward situation saying, dude, you missed that. And you see everybody doing that, right? They're pointing out stuff. So what we did is we got a bright orange quality assurance vest, hired a senior citizen, and that senior citizen's purpose was to be quality assurance. And they were the one to pick it out, just like they were going to get their own car. But so that's an example. Are you ever seen the TV show Undercover Boss? Mm-hmm. So Undercover Boss, you probably have seen the episode where the executive, put a wig on and then worked at the counter and then realized that he was clueless about what his stakeholders had to face and what their customers were experiencing in terms of bad experiences. Oh, wait, that's every show, right? That's every episode. Every episode's the same. And the moral of the story is get out of your cubicle, go to the front line and find out what people love and what people hate. And that's really the best way to identify what these various personas are.
Okay. So, and I think that's what's hilarious is that business owners that have sort of stepped away from the process of delivery are like, well, my people are handling that and we've got systems and blah, 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 but actually going there and figuring it out from the front lines because that information will 1,000 times change what you're doing, assuming it's not good. Hopefully it's good if you're okay. But like you're saying, most of the time it is not good. So How do we, when somebody comes up like this, when you're giving the example of Speedy, Thrifty, whatever, to me, Speedy can't have the checker because I don't care about the little spots on my car. So how do you identify somebody well enough in advance that they're the right one? Because if you give them the wrong experience, I'm not going to be happy either.
Right. So, the best way to do that is to have a bouquet of options for them that they can select. And also what you'll find is in this process is that you reinvent stuff. Like there's a burrito place here in town and they make good burritos. And my wife goes there because she likes good burritos more than she hates standing in line. But I hate standing in line more than I love good burritos. So the learning there for me, if I were to consult for that company, I would say you need two things, shorter lines and better burritos, right? So this process of being lucid enough about it, looking at these various personas allows us to identify ways to serve a range of personas all in one fell swoop. But yeah, sometimes you miss the boat. But typically what we want to do is we want to create and invent a perfect experience. And then when we have that first touch moment with the customer through polite probing, we can identify just through some polite questions, who they are. Sometimes we get it wrong, but generally what we find is there's a lot of cross-pollination across these various persona types, because again, when we fix one person's problem, we tend to fix it across the range of persona types.
That makes a lot of sense. Why aren't we just trying to fix all the most priority problems at once? Why go down the persona route, especially considering some of them fix each other anyway?
Well, the thing is you tend to have to get granular in order to identify these cumulative opportunities. In the book, I talk about what I call the baseline level of expectation. And the baseline level of expectation is also the danger zone. It's sort of, what a customer expects. I do a lot of work in healthcare and in hospitality. And I just did a hospitality hackathon down in San Diego. And I had some of the top executives with some of the biggest name brands in hospitality. And I said, guys, I'm going to take advantage of this opportunity as a guy that travels to 80 cities worldwide every year. Why is it that you think it's a good idea when somebody walks into their room and they see across the room this bottle of Avion water, and on it, it says, for your convenience, we've made this available for just $12, right? I mean, is it worth that, the mental dynamic of somebody coming to a $280 a night hotel to get shaken down so you guys can make an extra add $10 to the cost and say, congratulations, you've selected us and you don't pay for water, right? So it's that kind of just looking more critically at the things we do. And, part of this has to do with a philosophical shift. You're either customer centric or you're operational centric. And what I find in hospitality, for an example, they believe they're in the real estate business. When you get into healthcare, they believe they're in the healing business. And the truth of the matter is, everybody, no matter what you do, is in the business of delivering, as my 10-year-old daughter would say, delicious experiences.
So how do we as really busy entrepreneurs go down this path? Because it seems like this, yes, will solve a lot of problems long term, but short term, you're like, and then we're still trying to get this, and we're trying to do this, we're trying to do this, we're trying to do this. And so putting a huge effort into really dissecting who your people are is a lot of work. How much time can we expect? How much effort should we be putting into this? And what are the results? And I know for different businesses, it's going to be all different, but it's so hard to get somebody to take initiative on this first thing because it seems like so much work.
I think the problem is that most people see this as an optional activity that's an optimization activity, right?
Yes.
But when you think about it as an entrepreneur, and I haven't had a job in 40 years, so I speak from experience, what I've learned in order to grow, thrive, and prosper is that I didn't have the opportunity for any spillage. And most entrepreneurs have a lot of spillage. And by that, I mean, they're trying to communicate and deliver value to a customer that's not relevant to them. And if they were to get granular enough to understand who is their real customer and what do their customers hate and what do they love. Remember, we're in a time of digital ubiquity and hyperconnectivity. There is nowhere to hide. And in fact, there's nothing that will destroy a startup or an entrepreneur quicker than not being on top of this game. In fact, there was a study done by the Harvard Business Review that found if you go from a 5-star to a 4-star rating on, say, TripAdvisor or Yelp, it can be the difference between profitability and bankruptcy, right? Yeah, so it's that important.
Okay. Wow. So we're getting into minute everything. Okay. Can you give us some more options, I guess? I don't know. So when I'm thinking about personas and I'm thinking about doing some of this, and Ryan Levesque talks about a little bit of this stuff in his book, Ask, where he's like, figure out what your people really, really want and then put them in buckets and give it to them. Right. Yeah. But yours goes to a different level, especially with the customer experience side. How do we really go and identify? Can you give us like a step-by-step, even if it's just, stand at the front of the counter and like ask people these questions? Like, what are we asking them? How do we identify what they actually care about?
Right. So, when I develop technologies, the first thing I do, because it's really hard to be everything to everybody, right? Like I do a lot of work in healthcare, for an example. And one of the biggest mistakes that healthcare makes is that they try to deliver healthcare and experiences to a patient. But under the consumerization of healthcare, patients really are very, very different. So for an example, we've done stuff in clinics where we look at that first touch point. In order for, they have a lot of options. We're going to cut clinical visits in half using connected devices where people are going on doctor on demand and seeing their doctor through the device, right? 50%. There's a new solution that was just launched. I just came back from the Vision Expo in Las Vegas, where you can now get your glasses, your prescription for your glasses on your connected device and never walk into a doctor's office.
I
right?
love the future of
So
technology. Thank you.
yeah, right, right. So we're the competition is increasing. So when you take in this particular case, this clinic wanted to be able to serve a wide range of customers. So for an example, they had older customers, and those customers had problems with visual acuity. So they brought in large print Reader Digest, so those people could read. They learn just through active what we call innovation safaris, where we kind of hang out and observe and talk to people and kind of feel it and live it. Most people try to get information through surveys and through some other lame form of data analytics. But the truth of the matter is people that fill out surveys either hate you or they love you. But the real data is in that 80% of people who are sort of ambivalent. We want those people to tell us how we could get them to the love column, right? That's where the real data is. And those people do not fill out surveys. They're not emotively engaged enough to do it. So we talk about innovation safaris. So in that particular case, we also realized that their older population was having a really hard time getting up and down from these lower couches. So they put blocks underneath it and brought the couches up. They knew that there was a millennial dynamic. There were people that were digital natives that wanted to be able to have wireless access and to be able to access some interactive kiosks. So we made those available. We did, so we looked across, and again, it's not just age demography, it was about the way in which people want to engage us. And we were able to design experiences and environments and engagement strategies that made that experience exceptional for them.
Okay, do you ever recommend to actually niche to one or two or however many personas instead of having like such a wide range? Because it's harder. For these examples, they seem pretty simple. Put in, magazines that they like, put the couches higher, but things could be a lot different with, different technologies and that sort of stuff. Do you recommend actually using this as a way to filter?
Well, as the most prolific author of all times in business, Brian Tracy said, is that the universe loves a specialist, right? So when you can get a lot of verticality in any business that you're in, and I'm speaking as somebody who has 45 patents, I can tell you that the stupidest stuff I've done, I realized that the other day flying back from Palm Beach that my whole expertise is just sharing the dumbass stuff I've done in my life. That turns out that's my job, I guess, right?
That gives us all hope, Nick. Thank you very much. I appreciate that.
So, it's a form of psychotherapy for me, right? But, what I realized is that when you try to open that aperture up because you think that the wider you go, the more financial opportunities are, the more you become less relevant. You become less relevant to a target that matters. So I do think it's important, and a lot of people look at that from this perspective, like what is the most profitable segment that we can go into? And that's fine as long as you can surgically connect to that profitable segment, meaningful differentiated value. So yeah, I think your point's well taken. Identify those folks that you have. For an example, in that one case I just gave you with this waiting room, we actually diced this out into different clinics and created 3 different clinics that were completely and totally different profit centers. And even though that there was a lot of expense associated with that, the net benefits were significantly 2-3 times more revenue, and the results that we had from that were exceptional. And this is not uncommon. So I think the key is that you always want to make sure that there's good connection with a range of personas that you can deliver unique and special differentiated value.
Okay, how do you make that decision, or how do you present that? So for the clinic side, you're like, okay, now we're going to do 3 different ones with different specific things for each one. How do you sell that to someone, and how do you know that it's going to actually work?
Yeah. Well, and that's the problem is most people I work with a lot of large enterprises, and, they are extremely risk centric. And in fact, I have a book I'm working on right now called Stupidicity, the Power of Being Stupid, right? Because you begin to realize once you're willing to do something stupid, then it opens up all kinds of incredible options for you, right?
I love that. Okay.
Yeah, like I picked up skateboarding with electric skateboards, and I took a face plant the other day. But, it was really fun. Although my 10-year-old daughter, somebody asked him what happened to me, and she goes, well, sometimes my dad makes bad choices.
Oh my gosh, that is so awesome.
She's 10, right? But the thing is that experimentation is part of innovation, right? Is that if we want, and I don't think incremental innovation is really very interesting to entrepreneurs right now. What we need to do is we need to be disruptors. We need to displace old-fashioned models. We need to be destroyers. We need to not just do breakthrough innovations, we need to have completely new models. And so, yeah, the key there is understanding a range of customers that you provide unique and special value to. The great book, The Pumpkin Plan, which I really enjoy. He said something that I thought was really fun, and he said that it's not just good to do something you like. You really should do something for people who like what you're doing, right? Where you're doing something that people really love your art. And even in my speaking practice, I decided last year to take an opportunity to MC a Western regional conference for one of the largest corporations in the world. Turns out I suck as an MC, right? I'm a great thought leader, love to speak, I get great ratings, but I'm not Wink Martindale, right? So the one thing that entrepreneurs tend to do is they tend to go after any opportunity that comes their way, rather than looking at serving a range of personas or customer types that they can provide exceptional value. The Kindle was a great technology, but it was destroyed by the Kindle killer because the iPad was a lot better than the baseline level of expectation. And I can show you examples after examples of organizations that are doing exactly what they should be doing. They're delivering what customers want. But as entrepreneurs, we need to be able to deliver unique and special value.
I see. Okay. So you're like taking it to the next level. So if we were to come out with the base model, we have to do something more to really make a splash. So you talk a lot about disruptive technology and risk. And I was just reading the book Bold, and they talk about moonshots and stuff like that. How do we mitigate making a life and business and having lots of expenses and employees and that sort of stuff and have calculated risk? Because most of the people I interview don't necessarily, they're not risky as I would quote unquote, but they're very willing to take risks that are calculated. So how can we determine in our business how to go after that disruptive stuff when sometimes it seems scary?
Unfortunately, there is a cosmic law of the universe where there is a sort of proportionality between big opportunity and big risk. When we bring that down to incremental risk, we have incremental innovations and incremental opportunity. I've been trying to short circuit that formula my entire life. I've not been able to hack it. But if somebody can. Now, there's a great book, Great by Choice. And in Great by Choice, they say, don't shoot cannons, shoot bullets, right? So in other words, test stuff with small ammunition, see if it hits the target. And then if it does, then think about putting, and I don't disagree with that. I think his ideas around doing those kinds of tests. The good thing is now with data analytics and social analytics and our ability to just really connect with people to understand, if this delivers real value, there's a lot of ways to mitigate the risk of making a decision to try something that's special.
I'm so thankful we live in a data-driven world nowadays. But it's funny because I just saw Elon Musk live streaming yesterday about his crazy moonshot, Mars shot, technically. Yeah. And you look at people like that and how much risk they're willing to take to try and create this legacy. I know you talk about legacy a lot too, and I feel like this whole customer experience thing is part of your legacy in general because people aren't really paying attention. There's not really very many books on this specific side of things. So when you start going and looking at what you want for your legacy, what is that? I'm just curious because you're my friend too.
Well, it's funny. I just that's a good question. My goal is to do as many. I'm almost 60 years old. Yeah,
I didn't know that. Good.
What?
You look good for your age. Damn.
But I'm the same jackass I've always been. I don't even know how that's possible. But, I guess what I want to do is I want to run, jump, dance, run with scissors, break stuff. I want to try lots of things. I just was awarded my doctorate degree from a medical school in Southern California, an honorary doctorate degree. I'm putting together a disruption lab right now. I'm doing all kinds. I just launched Crave, which is at whatcustomerscrave.com, which is the service product associated with this. I just want to do a lot of things. And, Les Brown, one of my favorite authors, and if you ever have a chance to visit with him, I just love his work, is that he said that when he dies, he wants them to inscribe on his tombstone, "Here lies Les Brown. He was all used up." And, I think most people, and I know it's oversaid, they die with their music in them. And I believe, and we were talking about risk, and, I'm putting together a talk around stupidity. But, when you think about it, our schools and everything in our industrial complexes are designed to prevent you from looking stupid. A lot of people think it's financial risks they're worried about, but my research says that's not the case. I was just at my, a couple of years ago, I was at my son's graduation from middle school. And the dean came up to the front. The place was full of parents. And they said, ladies and gentlemen, we are going to start by introducing the most prestigious kids of our school. And these kids are amazing. And I think you'll agree why. Ladies and gentlemen, here are the kids that destroyed stuff. They were hackers. They were disruptors. They never say that, do they? These were the kids that had 100% attendance record.
Oh my gosh.
What? And then the next ones that marched up had 4.0 GPA since they were in preschool. We don't need replicators anymore. We need innovators. And to innovate, you got to be willing to look stupid, right? And that's the key to this. It's not, I have never, like I can remember being out of my pool when they called me up from a direct response project I did. I took $500,000 of my own money to launch an inflatable abdominal fitness product.
What? Okay.
Right. I know. Yeah. See, and I should have figured that out on the back of an envelope. I told you, all I do is share bad ideas that didn't turn out good for me with people. Right. And I'm sitting there looking at my little daughter playing in the pool as they report to me that the infomercial was a complete and total disaster. He told me that it was like a Hoover vacuum. It sucked and blew. So, yeah, right. And so the point is that it didn't kill me. I've made that money over 10 times over. And very few of these things ever have killed me. I've started my eyebrows on fire in my lab a few times. I've, made an ass out of myself on stage. I've written books that have deservedly gotten bad reviews. I've done all kinds of stupid things. But I have to say that if there were one element that I could attribute to my success, it's my willingness to, on a wholesale and embarrassing way, be willing to look stupid. I think there's a great lesson in that for kids and for entrepreneurs for sure.
How can we be more like you? So this is the thing. A lot of people are like, okay, well, that's crazy. I can't imagine investing in something, because a lot of people can't pick themselves back up when they've had that. And that's sort of a big question. How can we pick ourselves back up after you have been stupid and everybody looks at you like you're an idiot?
Yeah, well, I mean, look, entrepreneurship, what people don't realize is that we are drawn towards entrepreneurship, not just because of the things that we want to create. It's because every time I've invented something, it invented me right back. It's kind of like the end of Pretty Woman. I saved you, but I saved you right back. And that's what entrepreneurship does for people. It's part of our own evolutionary journey. It's the dumb things we do that we learn from that makes us evolve to the most interesting people in the room, right? But we have to earn that by sometimes making mistakes. Look, sometimes from a practical perspective, feel free to share the rewards and share the risks with other people that they're interested in investing into projects that you feel passionate about, that you can deliver value. So one thing that all entrepreneurs should do is to look at ways to share the opportunity and share the risk, right? The other thing that they should do is to do everything that they can to futurecast. Take a look at and if I would have done that with most of my projects, probably over a beer and the back of an envelope, I could have done the analysis and things would have came out differently, right? So do the analysis, do the heavy lifting prior to pressing the go button. But don't be scared and don't be worried about being stupid. I really think that's one of the biggest reasons people don't do things.
I love knowing that, because it makes us all feel better too, Nick, because we're like, okay, he didn't even do the initial thing on the back of the nap. That makes me feel so much better. I'm at least doing it, right? No, but that's the thing. I tell
my kids that I'm the perfect father because I've done every stupid thing you can possibly do. You're going to do that? Let me tell you my story, right? Yeah.
But I feel like that's what's so important, to have people like you that are willing to tell where you failed and raise your hand, instead of going, by the way, I am extremely successful. Nice to meet you. And you're like, of course, the amalgam of everything makes it be that way. But if you can tell us the horrible stories that you've been through in face planning, we're all human beings. We all are learning the best we can with what we have moving forward. So let me ask you one more question before we have to start wrapping up. But after, I just have to bring back the inflatable ab thing. So I know. Buy his book, but this is a funny story.
Yeah,
okay.
Don't do what he said.
So that next day, I want to talk about the emotional side a little bit, right? When you get those numbers back, And thank goodness you have a good support system and a wonderful wife and family. But when you get those numbers back and it is an epic failure, and did you go into depression? Where did it go down? And how did you actually bring yourself back up?
Well, the good news is I've become an expert failure, right? So I've done this a lot of times. But the flip side is I've invented one of the world's smallest medical implants. I invented one of the first wearable technologies. I speak and work with the largest brands in the world. I've developed a platform that allows me to live a luxurious existence, traveling all around the world, sharing my ideas with people. And I wouldn't have ideas if I didn't go out and start poking around and trying stuff. But, every one of these, here's the lesson that I learned from that is that once we invent something, and I talk about this in my book, Invent Stuff. Once we invent stuff, we have to have a friendly divorce from the idea. Because the problem as entrepreneurs, and it is epidemic and it is catastrophic all at the same time, is that we fall in love with our ideas. And as we all know, love is the most irrational of all human emotions, right? So we have to say, look, I love you, I believe in you, and I'm going to give you everything I've got. But I'm going to do it in a pragmatic way and I'm going to do it in a lucid and sober way to make sure that you're going to give back to this relationship, right? If you can do that, your chances for success are a lot greater. The day after that happened, I instantly realized that. I realized that I was so in love with the project. The data came back that it eliminated one of the biggest problems, that was lower back pain. The studies came back and proved that it had one of the best ways to excite abdominal muscles. It was inexpensive. It looked good. It was cool. We did a $500,000 video production. Everything was perfect. And I never thought it could have failed. So I realized at that point that I was delusional about its success, because there were other data points I would have discovered with some reasonable diligence, right?
See, okay, I'm so glad we dove deeper into that, because you're right, you are a ridiculously smart human being. You have had so many successes, I can't even list them all with everything. Hence the reason why I love that you're my mentor. You're an amazing human being. And yet, if you put in $500,000 into something, of course you would have done a lot of research. Yeah. But it's that connection, and that's what you're saying, the connection between us being entrepreneurs and us going, no, but I'm a little stubborn and it's mine and I know and I'm going to do it anyway. And that letting go process is hard, especially if you don't get the data. Like, you at least got the data saying it sucked. If it like halfway went, you could be like, well, no, it's, we could just marketing. We can just do this. And I feel like that's the thing that's tough. It's this gray area for most entrepreneurs, and we don't even realize how attached we are, and we can't let go either. And it's not serving us.
Yeah, and there in my book, Invent Stuff, I talk about the circle of death. And here's the problem, is that most people, the first thing they do when they come up with a business idea or a product idea, first thing they do is ask their spouse, hey, what do you think of this idea? Oh, I love you, Nick. You're dreamy. Everything you do is so awesome. I mean, I appreciate the support, but I got no new data points, right? Then I asked friends and colleagues. And they're like, Nick, you're really super good. We think you're a genius. It's a great idea. But again, I appreciate the support, but I got no new data points. And then you go out to what I call agenda-based input, where you ask patent lawyers who's going to charge you for patents, and marketing people who are going to make money, right? So we ask the wrong people about our ideas, and we get back erroneous data that we make actionable, and that's a bad idea. So we really need to look at the agenda and the actual accuracy and the meaning of the kind of feedback we get as we're going through that analysis.
You have so much knowledge, and I love how you name like everything that we talk about. Such a good marketing, branding, everything. Oh my gosh. Well, I could talk to you for hours, and hopefully you write more books so we can have more. I can't wait till we talk about stupidity. So why don't you tell us, I have to ask the last question, then we're going to talk all about where we can find this book. But what's one action listeners can take this week to help move them forward towards their goal of 1 million?
I'll tell you, I've started to be more thoughtful about what not to do. And that's really helped me out a lot. 3 months ago, I started my 90-day mojo makeover, right?
Okay.
And my 90-day mojo makeover was principally putting together a list. I use a mind map software of everything I'm going to stop doing. Mm-hmm. And I cannot begin, I should not be as old as I am and to come to this revelation, but it has been life-changing. I don't take calls at certain times. I don't look at email. There's a range of consulting that I will not accept. Hundreds of thousands of dollars are put in front of me just a few weeks ago to do projects. And I said no. And it was like this Zen, like beautiful moment. because I've decided that I'm only going to do things that I connect with, and I'm not going to spend time doing anything that doesn't move me towards my meaningful purpose. So I think the best thing that we can do right now is put together a list of non-productive and self-destructive things that we tend to do, whether we realize it or not, so that we can be free to focus on the things that matter.
A perfect button ending. All right, everybody, make sure you do this. If this was his realization after how much brilliance he has in his life, make sure you do this right now. Where can we find out more about your book? How do we buy it? How do we follow up with you? Because this is really important information that all entrepreneurs should know.
Yeah, you bet. So it's available on Amazon. It's available in Kindle. It's also in all the bookstores worldwide. The name of the book, again, is What Customers Crave. And there is a website for the book that gives you a little more information, and you can download a free chapter of the book at whatcustomerscrave.com. And I'm real excited about it. I've written bad books and I've written some pretty good books, and this is a good book. I put a lot of love into this, and I think the average entrepreneur would really get a lot of use out of it.
Heck yeah. I remember you talking about it over and over the past few years, going like, oh, you're still working on it. You're refining. You're doing everything you could. It's been amazing.
It's funny because I told my wife, do not ever let me write another freaking book. And then 2 days later, I'm already working on hacking healthcare and a book called Keynoteology. So
at least your wife knows you very well by now. Okay. Yeah, sure. Okay. Totally.
Medicine for this too, right?
Heck yes. Oh my gosh. Thank you so much, Nick. Everybody, I'm so excited you came back on the show. We're going to have you on again. You're amazing. Thanks so much. I hope you have an awesome day. Bye.
You too. Thanks. Bye-bye.
I hope you enjoyed that interview. And if you want more like it, go to eventualmillionaire.com. If you click on the millionaire case studies, you will see over 200 millionaire interviews. I don't want you to get overwhelmed, of course, but I do want you to pick the one that might make the biggest difference in your business today. So what's something you're struggling with, and take a look and see if one of those could specifically help you. Don't just take information for information's sake. I want you to be able to take the information, have it applicable to you right now. You use it, you take action, you see results, you come back and go, Jamie, that was amazing. That's what I want. So go check out eventualmillionaire.com and click on the millionaire case studies. Thanks.